Yo, what's going on, guys? And today we're going to be talking about the Celtics are more likely to trade Kristaps Porzingis or Jrue Holiday than Derek White. I think that's just obvious, and I want to hear your thoughts down below in the comments section. As this report's coming from Jake Fisher of the Stein Line, the People's Insider. Nice guy. We actually know each other very well, on a first name basis. Good guy. And he's somebody that, look, his reporting's gotten way more credible over the years, and I know him and Mark have probably fleshed this out together. And I think a lot of us would have already seen the writing on the wall that this was probably something that was going to happen. As Kristaps Porzingis when he's on the floor, this team is basically unstoppable. But you could argue they won a championship without him. And that he came back just so he could play in the championship games, but it wasn't that he was necessary. And Jrue Holiday, I think, was one of the necessary guys in the championship run. However, he has clearly lost a step. It's not that he's bad, but that contract may not age well, and it's starting to tell. And if they can convince some team that is not smart to take on that contract, then they would do it, because I think they'd rather rock with Payne Pritchard and Derek White moving forward than Derek White and Jrue Holiday, or Jrue Holiday and Payne Pritchard, just because that's going to age better. And you could argue teams that need a point guard and are desperate, Jrue Holiday's still a good one. He's not bad. It's just compared to the level Jrue Holiday we've come to know, it's not the same as it used to be. So with that being said, what do you guys think? If you guys had to agree that this is a interesting situation with so many moving pieces and parts happening, as the team was just sold, and we know that they're looking to be repeat champions. And Derek White's trade value and just value in general is really good. And White, Jason Tatum, and Jaylen Brown are the three untouchable players on this roster. And Porzingis has a expiring contract of $30.7 million that could be movable. Now, Porzingis obviously elevated the Celtics during that championship run, and he was frequently injured since last playoffs. The trading away of Porzingis would allow the Celtics to approximately save $218 million in luxury tax penalties. While Jrue Holiday is owed $104 million over the next few seasons, he's a great defensive player, but the Celtics have already drafted Baylor Shireman, Jordan Walsh, all to do as replacements. And I know Neemias Queta isn't elite, but Neemias Queta is a guy who was going to be cheap, or a better option of what they could have as a backup, as we assume Al Horford is more than likely going to retire after this season. And if they move off of Porzingis, then moving forward, I think they're going to go by center by committee, which would be Neemias Queta, Luke Kornet, or a Luke Kornet replacement, and Xavier Tillman. Maybe you draft the fourth guy, because the biggest argument here that they have, or problem, is they don't have a long. If they get rid of Porzingis, they need a lanky guy. They need a Jesse Edwards, or really one of those lanky floor, rim running, lob threat, shot blocking bigs that have come to become popular. Obviously, Daniel Gafford and those guys are the elite examples of that, but you would just go in the draft and a Jean Burringer is a great example of a guy that they get. Or if they could get Clint Capella, who he clearly lost his step, but if you can get on at minimum, that could be something. But going back to the rosters, if you look at it, I think clearly the Boston Celtics have set themselves up. Next year, they're at $195 million in committed salary this year. Next year, $223 million. the combination of Porzingis and Jrue Holiday's salaries would be about $63 million, just a little over that. And you would assume that a team that needs a point guard or is going to be having a bunch of salary, you could not dump, but Jrue Holiday's still going to be a good guard for whatever team that said be, as you would want to move into next season with Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Derek White as your three highest paid guys. You've already committed to Sam Hauser, Payton Pritchard, you drafted Baylor Shireman, Xavier Tillman will be on expiring, and if he can be a part of that center by committee with Tillman, Neemias Queta, and Luke Kornet's an expiring, but you either bring back Luke Kornet, who's been having a career year, or if you look at who's going to be some of the free agents in 2025, obviously this is going to be what people have said is a recession in terms of the players that are going to be available. But in my opinion, just thinking about centers, if you wanted that center by committee approach, we mentioned Clint Capella earlier, and you can bring a guy like that in, and then we don't know if Al Horford's still going to be there, but someone like Mason Plumlee, or even bring back Luke Kornet on a multi-year deal, who's still a good shot blocking center who can finish above the rim and shoot some three-pointers. And he's not going to blow you away and won't cost you too much. While when we're just talking about a team that needs a guard, if you're looking to move Jrue Holiday, you obviously could think of a team like Orlando. You could maybe flesh out some salary there, or you could even look at a team like maybe Philadelphia would want to have Tyrese Maxey have some help, and they would maybe move off of Paul George, or a team like Utah if you're just trying to dump some salary. But I really think earlier we were at, I forget if I mentioned it or not, but a guy like Simone Fontecchio and the Detroit Pistons could be really helpful for them if they were looking to move that $63 million, with Porzingis being someone who could maybe go to Detroit. And even I think Jrue Holiday, I know they have already De'Aaron Fox in San Antonio, so you start to look at the other teams, maybe like a Houston. If Fred VanVleet leaves, maybe they're like Jrue could be the guy that they want. I think there's options there, and especially a team like Boston, where Jordan Walsh, Queta, Tillman, Shireman, Pritchard, Hauser, White, Brown, Tatum are all under contract, and right there, that's about 9 dudes you have, and then you assume they draft somebody, maybe draft 2 guys. That's 11. You, at this point, JD Davison you would think would probably get converted if they feel confident there, and so they wouldn't need to bring in a guard. They go for JD Davison, and you have Miles Norris and Drew Pearson who can stay on 2 ways, I think, for another year each. So you would keep doing that. And then I personally think Al Horford this year, I know he's having a good stretch in terms of how old he is. He's a 38-year-old who this season's playing 28 minutes a night. I know in terms of his field goal percentages and what he used to be, but he's primarily taken a lot more an outside guy this year and still effective. So to me, I think you look at that, and I wouldn't be surprised if they could convince him to come back for another one. But to me, I would assume if you look at the draft this year, there are guys like Golden from Michigan. I don't think they would go. There's undrafted, or Dylan Cardwell, I think would be great for this team in the draft, at the second round pick, or a undrafted guy. But that's it. Bye.